Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Shaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. Good morning and happy Wednesday, happy hump day for some individuals. And today is our Women in Wellness Wednesday. It is open mic, so if anyone would like to be a part of the broadcast, please let me know in the comment section, or you can direct message me on X. I'm under It's Our Turn RP, or you can send me an email at unfilteredvisionnews@gmail.com. And so with that, let's get into it with our Kids Corner.
Why a tiny raindrop falls from the sky. Today, let's hear the story of a raindrop who wanted to find true happiness. The raindrop looked down and saw a rich boy with all the toys he wanted, but the boy still felt lonely inside. Why isn't he happy? Thought the raindrop. He has everything, but something is missing in his heart. The raindrop wanted to fall, to touch the earth, to show the boy that joy doesn't come from things, but from simple moments. The boy laughed and felt the cool raindrop on his skin. For the first time, he felt joy without toys. The raindrop whispered, "True happiness is not in riches, but in love, laughter, and little moments we share." And so, the boy learned, being rich is not about money, but about having a rich heart, full of kindness and joy. Positive message. True happiness comes not from what we own, but from the love, kindness, and little joys around us.
Yes, it's not a what we own. It is about what is around us. And, you know, we're going to be getting back to that because, and I'm just saying, when I say we're going to be getting back to that, I see that we are getting back to that as a society. I think having the tech boom has made everybody realize how precious life is and what's really important to them, right? And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. There are some things that the devil meant for evil, but God will always turn them around for good. And with that, let's get into honoring God with our body. So, God, please guard our mind and our thoughts. God, help me to fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So I will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please protect our ears and help us listen to your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, please protect our eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, please speak life over my mouth. God, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the doors of my lips. God, please help our hands to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone, and especially to those who belong to our family in the faith. And God, please protect our reproductive organs. Help us to honor you, God, with purity. God, help me to honor you with my body. And God, please protect my feet as I walk along your path. God, let your word be a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. And so if you're just joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, that is a prayer that we say every day to set our hearts and our minds right for the day as we go forward. So there's a lot of news to get into, a lot of things happening at the White House. We're going to get into some of that. But where I wanted to start was an article I came across regarding JP Morgan Chase. And whenever things hit the financial market, we really need to stay top of mind and abreast to what is going on. So let's get into it.
And just revealed huge systemic risks in the financial system. They're the latest victim of the private credit crisis. And if JP Morgan goes down, trust me, the whole system will go down.
The private credit stocks are under pressure again after a report said JP Morgan was marking down software portfolios and limiting lending.
Hey guys, sorry for interrupting the video. I just wanted to point out that since we filmed this, Deutsche Bank and Morgan Stanley have also come out, in addition to JP Morgan, and said they have serious issues with private credit. So the point here is we could be seeing the beginnings of a GFC 2.0, where this time it's not subprime is contained. They're saying private credit is contained, but we know how that story ends. Back to the video.
I'm going to reveal exactly what's going on and why this is such a big deal in 3 simple, fast steps. Step number 1, let's go over how crises usually start. Well, actually, they start just like this. Let me explain. We've got a chart from today's date, maybe about a week ago, going back to the beginning of the year. On the left, we go from, well, 0 up to 15%, and unfortunately, this goes all the way down to negative 30%. So let's start by looking at this black line. This is a visual representation of a BlackRock chart, their share price. So you see, starting at the beginning of the year, they're humming along here, and they got to a point, doing pretty well, up 10% for the year. But then the bottom falls out in the private credit space. They start to take a hit. Going to, well, the middle of February, let's say, they're still flat on the year, but then they reveal that they are also caught up in this private credit debacle, and they actually admit the fact that they themselves are also halting redemptions, just like Blackstone and just like Blue Owl and many, many others that we're going to discuss right now in this video. So,
And when he refers to redemptions, he's talking about withdrawals, right? People actually going in and saying, okay, I want my money now. And if you have too many people that come for their money and you don't have their money, that's a problem.
as you would expect, their share price plummets down now right around maybe 10, 15% on the year. The blue line, this is Blackstone, not to be confused with BlackRock. I don't know why they always have to have black in the title and some sort of very hard substance. I don't know. Maybe it's supposed to give you confidence that their share price, won't do this because Blackstone is down a hell of a lot more than BlackRock. Now, I think it's just a matter of time before they all go down a heck of a lot more. But let's focus on the poster child here. That would be Blue Owl. They start off the year, and we forget that going into maybe February or so, at least the later parts of January, their share price was flat on the year. In fact, they were up about 5, maybe even 7% on the year. But then we all know what happens. They have to start fire selling assets because they have so many redemptions. And now their share price has gone, well, literally off the charts, but not in a good way, in the bad way. when my chart isn't low enough to show that they're down probably 35%, if not more, on the year. So the point here is that financial crisis always starts with the financials going down as far as their share price. Now let's zoom out a little bit and look at the XLF. This is an ETF with a lot of the big players in the financial space, such as American Express, JP Morgan, Berkshire, Wells Fargo, and B of A. Editor, throw up that chart, and we can see that's down big time on the year as well. Now let's zoom out even further, go back to the GFC, maybe 2007 going into 2008, and what did the financials do? What did the XLF do? The exact same thing that it's doing today, and the exact same thing you would expect to precede a financial crisis. And oh, by the way, the market sniffed this out way before JP Morgan came out and actually admitted that they were, well, one of the cockroaches, let's say. You can see their share price really going down over the last month or so. But let me be very clear. This is absolutely a systemic issue. I mean, go back a few months into 2025 and remember when Tricolor blew up. Remember when First Brands blew up and everybody said that it was a nothing burger. Everyone said that it was isolated. In fact, today, what are they saying? Well, private credit is contained. Just like they said subprime was contained back in 2007 and 2008. But we all know how that movie ended. And at the end of this video, I'm going to show you mechanically why these credit cycles are never, ever contained. But before I do, I want to mention that it's not just BlackRock who's having issues, Blackstone, and of course Blue Owl. It's also entities in the UK such as MFS. They blew up at the end of February. You might be asking yourself, George, what does MFS do? That would be mortgages. Ring a bell? And we just saw the breaking news that another private credit cockroach is coming out of the woodwork and having problems with redemptions and likely going to have to fire sell assets that could put them in jeopardy of going bust.
Step number 2. Now let's get into the details. Look beneath the hood and find out exactly what's happening with JP Morgan and others that are more recently having problems like Cliffwater. So here we go. From Bloomberg, JP Morgan restricts private credit lending after loan markdowns. And although the title highlights loans, it's also just as much, if not more so, about the collateral. More on that in step number 3. That's why these credit cycles are never, ever contained. But getting down into the article, a lot of the devalued loans are to software companies that have been some of the biggest borrowers in the space. But then along comes AI. Then along comes a deteriorating labor market. Then along comes a deteriorating economy. The tide starts going out, and we got problems. Let's get back to the article. Wall Street lenders like JP Morgan act as banks to private credit funds, providing them with cash using their loans, wait for it, as collateral. A reduction in the value of those assets will curtail the amount the bank is able to lend to these funds. And not just to these funds, but it curtails the amount of lending the bank isn't necessarily able to do, but willing to do to other counterparties in the financial economy. So you can see how liquidity can dry up very, very quickly under these conditions. And liquidity drying up is just a way of saying there's no more money when people need money really bad. And then everyone goes bust because there's no money because the banks ain't willing to lend. And here we go. Cliffwater, the most recent cockroach that we talked about in step number 1, they became the latest private credit firm to face redemption requests in excess of 7% from its flagship fund. Now, this isn't some, rinky-dink fund. This is $33 billion. And the problem with these redemptions is the assets on their balance sheet, these loans they're making, are highly illiquid. So let's just say for a moment the loans that Cliffwater made to these, let's say, subprime borrowers, to put it mildly, are all valued at 100 cents on the dollar. Okay, fine. But if you start getting redemption requests that you have to meet, you've got to fire sell those assets. And even if they're valued at 100 cents on the dollar, they're highly illiquid. There are not many buyers out there. And the buyers that do exist, they ain't going to pay you 100 cents on the dollar. They're going to pay you 50 cents on the dollar. And at that price, they might not even be able to meet redemptions. And if that happens, you know what's next. They go bust. And oh, by the way, remember when Jamie Dimon famously was warning about all these cockroaches? What he didn't tell us is that he was one of the cockroaches. No wonder he's been able to call this cycle so well. No wonder he's been so prophetic through this whole entire process, because he had a front row seat as to how bad and how garbage these loans actually were. And just as a reminder, going back to step number 1, MFS, Market Financial Solutions, which was a mortgage lender, borrowed more than $2.7 billion from groups like Barclays, Apollo, Atlas, and they completely went bust at the end of February. So my point here is it's not just isolated to the U.S. When these cycles play out, we go from the boom to the bust, it usually impacts the entire financial system and therefore impacts the entire global economy.
Step number 3. Now let's go over why JP Morgan having problems with private credit is such a big deal and reveals how there's all these systemic risks in the system that we need to pay attention to. We'll start off with a bank. Now, this represents the banking system as a whole. Goes over to the economy. Now, the economy circles round and round and round, and unfortunately, whether we like it or not, it's a debt-based monetary system, and it's a debt-based economy, meaning there's a lot of debt out there that needs to be rolled over constantly. And if that debt isn't able to be rolled over, then entities go bust, and it's a GFC 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, whatever 0.0 you want to throw in there, it's a GFC. So down here we have the labor market, which of course is a component of the economy, and it's crucial. This really needs to be the focal point. And then we go over here, we have businesses, and then we have these private credit guys that are borrowing from the banks. They have to pay back those loans. Okay, so what happens if the labor market starts to deteriorate? All right, so the labor market goes from this size, let's just say down to this size. Well, if the labor market shrinks, in other words, there's fewer people working, the unemployment rate goes up, the non-farm payrolls are negative, like we just saw, negative 92,000, whatever proxy you want to use, it's basically a representation for incomes or aggregate demand. So if we have the labor market go from this size down to this size, what happens to the amount of money, aggregate demand, that's going to these businesses? Well, that's going to shrink, obviously. So we'll get rid of one of these dollars. But that means there's fewer dollars going to the businesses that borrowed from private credit. So we've got to erase one of those. And then what happens, this guy doesn't get paid back. So he can't pay back the bank. So we get rid of that dollar. So now all of a sudden, the bank is saying, whoa, 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 whoa. We have to pump the brakes here. We have to be much more strict with our underwriting. And until we see how this plays out, we don't want to increase the size of our balance sheet. We might want to decrease it slightly. We want to be as conservative as possible. In other words, liquidity dries up, money gets tight. Well, that means that there's less money going into the economy that needed, let's just say, the $3 to sustain its current level of economic activity. All right, well, that means the economy starts to shrink, deteriorate. It goes from this size, well, this is an accurate representation, but you guys get the idea here. It goes from this size, let's say, down to that size. It goes down, bottom line. It becomes smaller, which does what to the labor market? It makes it even smaller. And then we go ahead and erase one of these dollars. We erase one of these dollars. This entity blows up, can't pay back the banks. Money becomes even tighter. This is why there is so much systemic risk when the big banks like JP Morgan start to have problems. Now, I know a lot of you right about now are probably looking at this saying, oh my gosh, wow, that makes a lot of sense. It's terrifying, but what do I do about it? Well, I actually have good news for you. My financial conference, my annual financial conference is coming up. It's called Rebel Capitalist Live. And this is where you can meet, rub elbows, and hear the insider intel you need from the pros as to how you can not only survive what's likely coming, but you can actually thrive financially if you have access to the right information, and if you don't bury your head in the sand like an ostrich, which is what most people do, and just whistle right by the graveyard and pretend that this will all just work itself out. So my point here is this financial conference, Rebel Capitalist Live, is something you cannot afford to miss. So if you want to see the lineup of incredible speakers we have and get more information as to how you can be a part of Rebel Capitalist Live, we'll go ahead and put a link in the description below this video.
Yes, and if you guys want to check that out, that's fine. I've got some other financial, I should say, teachings that I found over the weekend, and I'll share that as well. But, we have to be, as I like to say, there's financial wellness as well, right? We do have financial wellness. And so these are things we're going to be talking about. We have to. We have to have a broad conversation. Now, this next video, it kind of piggybacks off of what he was talking about. And I'm glad he set everything up. So when you see this next video, you'll be like, okay, now I can follow the conversation just a little bit better.
As I was saying it in the morning, which kind of got masked because over the last 5 days, actually last 10 days, it's all been about Iran on the headlines, right? But the problem is not going away. The problem is very much there. You know, that's why I'm saying it's sort of, I've put that sort of word again there, right? So flurry of headlines last night and all kind of pointing to the fact that there is perhaps more stress coming. So we'll go one by one. There are two, I mean, which are getting the most amount of attention. Morgan Stanley and private credit lender Cliffwater have restricted withdrawals from private credit funds. By the way, there is also JP Morgan, which is saying that they're going to stop lending to private credit funds, especially those with exposure to software companies, software stocks. So some of the biggest, largest banks in the US, right, like Morgan, like JP Morgan, and of course, specialized private credit lenders like Cliffwater are all starting to sound, you know, I don't want to be alarmist, but it always, I mean, and I've seen this over the last, you know what, you go back to 2000, I'm not saying this is 2008, as I said, don't want to be alarmist, but it always starts slow and everybody kind of says that, you know, it's all well, it's all good, etc., etc. But eventually more cockroaches are found. No disrespect to cockroaches, but number two, right, Partners Group, which is of course a very large group, a private equity group, and they were quoted as saying, this was an article in the Financial Times, they said that there's a good chance that we see default rates double in the next few years. Remember, the US private credit market, and I did a full detailed half-hour program on this, is about $1.5 trillion US. And it's not just, you know, it's an opaque part of finance, but the problem is it is plugged into everything else. It's plugged into banks, it's plugged into insurance companies, it's plugged into, you know, regular investment firms, etc. as well. So that is number two. Number three, you have an investment fund in LA, $5 billion in asset management, not very well known, but that's why I mentioned the size of the fund. It questioned asset manager Blue Owl. Blue Owl now is a very well-known private credit alternate asset manager. It's listed, and this is where the trouble started, and we had highlighted it about a month ago. This investment fund with $5 billion in assets essentially is now questioning Blue Owl's current value on its investments. I mean, their assessment of what these assets on their books is worth, and saying, well, perhaps not, they're not being marked to market properly. Number four, Deutsche Bank, and this was separate, right? Deutsche Bank came out with an annual report last night, and they essentially are saying that their exposure to what is described as NBFIs, non-bank financial institutions, is about 26 billion euros, about $30 billion, basically. This is essentially exposure to the private credit fund. Now, again, you've got to remember that Deutsche's size is, what, 500 billion euros. Size of balance sheet is $500 billion. This is 26 billion euros, right? So context matters, but just wanted to put that out. And another company, and maybe completely unrelated, but I'm just picking up different pieces, shares of Canadian subprime lender, a company called Go Easy. They fell 50% yesterday after guidance of surging loan defaults and write-downs as well. So just wanted to sort of, you know, put, it's a lot of headlines. It's perhaps a little unrelated, but, you know, the center of all of it, I think, is concerns around private credit, which aren't going away anytime soon at all. So this is a story.
Yeah. So that's another one. Now let's check out this last one.
Restricted private credit lending. This is out of, well, pretty much everywhere. Bloomberg, Reuters, everyone's breaking the story. It's not just JP Morgan. They've also marked down the value of loan portfolios. Morgan Stanley has just blocked fund redemptions. Ladies and gentlemen, are you seeing a pattern with the 1970s oil crisis?
Yeah, there was the oil crisis of 1970. When he brought that up, I was like, ooh, I'm intrigued. So let's check out. I did a little research in Grok, and it's like, okay. So I said this video brought up that last one, the 1970s oil crisis, regarding what is happening with JP Morgan Chase. Is there any correlation to what is happening now in Iran? Okay, so I wanted to kind of bring all of those together. And yeah, Grok says yes, there is clear correlation. It's not um, coincidental timing, but tied directly to macroeconomic fallout from the ongoing Iran conflict, creating an oil supply shock similar to the 1970 crisis. Does anybody remember the people in line getting gasoline and gasoline prices going higher and higher? Mm. So the one I linked from Facebook, it says they marked down the value of loans to private credit funds, especially software tech related portfolios, which limits how much those funds can borrow against their collateral, and restricted new lending. So it also references similar moves like Morgan Stanley blocking some redemptions. The video draws parallels to the economic stress, stagflation, and credit tightening during the 1970s oil crisis, 1973 OPEC embargo, and especially the 1979 Iranian Revolution disruption. So all this stuff similarly happened in the 1970s. So what's happening right now with JP Morgan Chase? The credit tightening by JP Morgan Chase is happening amid broader market vitality and caution, as we saw in that first video. It's partially due to valuation concerns in private credit, so impacts on software firms, but it's amplified by the macro environment. So what's happening now in Iran, the U.S. and Israel launched major military strikes on Iran starting around February 28th, targeting nuclear sites, military infrastructure, leadership, including reports of escalation against high-level figures and related assets. Iran retaliated by attacking Gulf energy targets, disrupting shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, which everybody's been talking about that, right? Which carries 20% of global oil trade, and hitting oil infrastructure. This has surged oil prices to above $100 per barrel, risk having Iran's oil output, right? If port of Karag Island is affected, and I talked about that a little bit yesterday, effectively snarled tanker traffic and created the biggest energy supply disruption in decades. So JP Morgan's own analysis have been warning about exactly this: potential 10% S&P 500 correction, inflation resurgence, stagflation risk, and oil hitting $120 a barrel if disruptions worsen. They explicitly compare it to the 1970s. Yeah. I don't know how many people are out there talking about this outside this guy doing this short YouTube or this short Facebook, video, but I wanted to bring this to you guys because we definitely have to be aware and top of mind of this, because in 2008 it was the housing crisis, right? But right now, the way we survive as a global unit around the world, any chinks in the armor, it affects everybody else. It's like dominoes, it cascades, right? So the direct correlation, the oil shock barrel, the 1970 crisis, especially 1979, were triggered by Iranian oil disruptions, revolution plus embargo effects, causing lines at gas stations. Remember, I told you guys about the lines, inflation, recession, and banking strains. Today's Iran war is recreating that exact dynamic. Oil supply chaos from the same region right now. See, oil does more than just put gas in our cars. It heats houses, right? It puts fuel in the tankers, oil, there's that particular source of energy, one of the main sources globally. When it's disrupted, it affects everybody else. It's just a chain reaction. So banking and credit link, the 1970s oil shocks strained banks, inflation, loan issues. JP Morgan's predecessor, Chase Manhattan, had massive ties to the Shah of Iran handling um, petrodollars, loans, and deposits. The 1979 revolution led to asset freezes and hits on Chase. Now in 2026, the new Iran conflict is fueling the very economic uncertainty, oil/inflation fears that prompts credit caution, like the loan markdown in this video. Now, the other thing that I don't know if it's in here, it's not in here. Okay. That people are talking about is how China wants to put the yuan and say, okay, well, when you're buying oil from Iran in this region, you need to use the yuan, not the dollar. Yeah, that's happening. Maybe I'll have to put that in here too, because I was like, okay, where's the one? Where's that coming up? That's not in here, but we need to. That's in play. The yuan is in play. China's doing that. So timing. JP Morgan's private credit moves coincided exactly with the Iran escalation and their own public warnings about the oil crisis. It's the same bank flagging and risk while tightening internally. This isn't some hidden conspiracy, it's geopolitics driving energy prices, which ripples into inflation, expectations, market vitality, and banking decisions. The U.S. is now a net oil exporter, unlike the 1970s. So domestic impacts are buffered somewhat, but global prices still hit hard, right? So now I want to ask, what about the yuan? Ooh. I hope I spell this right. I don't know if it's supposed to be the A first or the Y first. Okay, I spelled it right. Cool. Okay. Because I was like, I'm curious, It's like, okay, so the Chinese yuan is directly tied to the current Iran conflict and resulting oil crisis. So, more so than in past episodes, through Iran's push to challenge the petrodollar system and accelerate yuan use in energy trade. So they're trying to get in the game, right? So Iran effectively exploring and reportedly negotiating with several countries a conditional reopening of limited tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, allow passage only if the oil cargo is paid in Chinese yuan, not US dollars. My goodness. So this stems from reports citing senior Iranian officials via CNN and other outlets. It's not a full reopening. The strait remains largely snarled for most shipping, but a targeted carve out favoring one dominated deals, primarily benefiting China, Iran's top buyer, taking 80 to 90% of its exports in recent years. So this directly challenges the decades-old petrodollar agreement, oil priced and settled in USD, which underpins dollar dominance. So China has long pushed yuan internationalization in oil. Shanghai's yuan dominated crude futures since 2018, CIPS payment system bypassing SWIFT. So SWIFT is one of those international payment systems. So CIPS It's bypassing it. So a prior yuan settled deals with sanctioned suppliers like Russia and Iran. Much Iranian oil already flows to China via shadow fleets, often settled in yuan, RMB, to evade sanctions. The war has amplified this, and I'm not calling it a war, it is a conflict. Iran continues shipping millions of barrels to China even amid disruptions, with some Chinese Iranian vessels getting preferential passage. Ooh, what is going on? Now, this correlates to the broader oil crisis and JP Morgan actions. The ongoing war, there's still a conflict, has spiked oil prices, right? We talked about that, over $100 a barrel. Shocks Hormuz 20% and fueled inflation, stagflation fears mirroring the 1970s. Now, for China, it hits hard short term. Um, Lost didn't count Iranian barrels, higher replacement costs from Russia and the Gulf uh, reroutes, but buffered from massive stockpiles, renewables push, and Russia pivot. The yuan proposal could give China preferential access to limited Hormuz oil, tilting flows towards Beijing, while others face rerouting costs and insurance hikes. Now, this ties back to the JP Morgan Chase video reel that I mentioned before. JPM's credit tightening, loan markdowns, restricted lending to private credit funds reflects macro vitality from the oil shock, inflation risk, potential S&P correction, banking caution. JPM analysts have flagged the Iran conflict as the biggest threat to their prior bearish USD view. Oil shocks strengthening dollar via safe haven flows and commodity links. Now, a yuan for oil push erodes petrodollar strength over time, right? Potential long-term USD pressure, but short-term oil-driven dollar strength, as seen in early March. Yuan vitality reversals by PBOC to manage risk. So the broader ripple, higher energy costs strain global credit liquidity, exactly why banks like JPM are pulling back now. So in short, the yuan isn't just a side note, it's becoming a geopolitical weapon in this crisis. Iran uses it to favor China, its lifeline amid sanctions and war. China gains strategic energy edge and currency clout while it indirectly pressures dollar homogeny. If this one carve out expands, even limited, it accelerates de-dollarization trends faster than expected, adding another layer of uncertainty to the 1970 style oil shock we're seeing. Markets are watching closely. Short-term vitality and currency bonds and credit is likely if it gains traction. And another thing that people are talking about, sorry to throw this monkey wrench in here, is the gold trading that's going on. There's a lot of trading that these countries are doing in gold. Yeah, so that's in the mix. I will not make y'all go through this. I will study that on my own, but that's how my brain kind of works. I just start going down rabbit holes. I'm like, well, what about this? Well, they brought that up. Well, what about that? And you just have certain questions that you want to get answered because the way they've created this global system, we really are all in this together. And it's the interdependencies that have created an unnatural dependence. It's one thing, like I was saying the other day, if we're dependent as the United States and we have a few things out here and there, if everything were to shut off tomorrow from those outskirts, can we still stand on our own? And right now, because of the dependencies that have been created, we can't say that. We can't stand on our own in some areas. And that shouldn't be. And that shouldn't be for any country, in my opinion. It shouldn't be that way. You should be able to stand on your own. If you can't stand on your own, something's wrong. Okay? You filtered out too much stuff. You should always be able to stand on your own. But this is, it comes back to greed and all kinds of other stuff. But we won't get into all of that right now. But good morning to everybody. Good morning, Spud. Thank you so much. And JJ, he says, top of the morning, peace and blessings. Thank you. And Uncle Coolwater says, good morning. After hearing this guy, I think I want to order some Dairy Queen. I know, right? And Uncle Coolwater also says, along with lines, there were limits on the amount of gas that you could buy. There were restrictions. There were complete restrictions during that time because, people wanted to come and not hoard gas, but they wanted to make sure if it was at a decent price that they could get it, that they got enough. Couldn't do it. So we'll see what continues to happen, and we'll definitely continue to follow this. And like I said, I got to ask Grok. I'll just let it go, and we'll keep going here. And I'll just say, what about the gold? What about the gold that's going on? Because that's happening as well. Like I said, these countries have okay, we don't have yuan and the petrodollar and this, that, and the other. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. You gave me a good breakdown. We're thinking about the gold. Gold is behaving in a classic but counterintuitive way amid the current Iran conflict and oil shock, initially spiking a safe haven asset, then pulling back sharply, so much like some patterns seen in past crises. Because you got to remember, oil is a commodity, just like gold, just like silver. They're commodities. So they're traded differently, and their rise and falls act differently. But the one thing that is outside of it being a precious metal, it can be traded and it has monetary value, right? I wonder whatever happened to that whole Fort Knox meeting they were supposed to have. They were like, yeah, we're going to go to Fort Knox. And then it never happened. I wonder who said, you know what, knock it off. You ain't going up in there. Because it shut down quick. I'm just saying. And it never happened. You saw Elon Musk kind of dancing around like, yeah, we're going to go into Fort Knox. And somebody was like, nope. And he didn't say nothing. So whoever said it, they were powerful enough to shut that down. They shut down that whole thing. All right, you guys, we're going to get into this next set of news. Now, this is going to be from Valuetainment, PBD, in his podcast. And I wanted to start off with the Meta layoffs. I don't know if any of you guys have heard about that, but that's going on as well.
That are working at Facebook. There's some bad news coming your way because Meta eyes massive 20% workforce cuts as AI infrastructure costs continue to soar across operations, reports say. Vinny, get your charts ready, please. I'm going to come to you first. So while you're looking at this story, let me read it to you. Meta's reportedly weighing, and by the way, that's around 16,000 people. Rob, can you pull up what 20% of Facebook Meta looks like? Mm-hmm. The cuts come as a technology company aims to offset the cost of AI infrastructure and prepare for greater efficiency brought about by AI-assisted workers. AI-assisted workers. AI-assisted workers. What does that even mean?
They're sitting there operating the AI and telling ChatGPT what to
do. Yeah. 3 sources familiar with the matter told Reuters. The outlet added that the timing and the size of the potential layoffs have not been finalized. When reached for comment, Meta spokesperson told Fox Business, this is a speculative report about theoretical approaches. According to Reuters, top Meta executives recently shared plan for the proposed layoff with senior leaders at the company. If the company were to slash 20% of its employees, the layoffs would amount to Meta's largest restructuring since 2022 and early 2023. Meta laid off 11,000 workers in November of 2022. Mm-hmm. The company cut another 10,000 jobs months later. Meta employs nearly 80,000, 79,000 as of December 31st. That's around 16,000 employees that will be fired. Tom, thoughts on this?
So there's a couple thoughts I have. First of all, people accuse foreign countries in the Middle East of sport washing. They're using sports to kind of cover up other things they're doing. Right now, we've got a thing called AI washing going on. There is a little bit of changes in the economy. Some things are going on. And what people are doing right now is they're floating the benefits of AI as the reason for layoffs. You know, you had Block with the Jack Dorsey company a week ago, Pat, remember that, the big thing? And it turns out that they had acquired 2 companies, including a crypto company, and they had never optimized the administrative headcount. So part of the layoff was they had a bunch of duplicate administrative jobs. You know, it was a fact. Yet, oh my gosh, this is what's happening. So what is happening here is Facebook is floating to the market what calling it restructuring and using AI as the reason to distract people from, you know, what is really happening with Facebook growth. And the answer is they're not down, but by the way, their stock is still up, I think, 86% as of this morning, going back to 2022 when if you go back to 2022 or look at 5 years, I think it's up like 86% since 2022. And yeah, 116% if you go back over 5 full years. And what they've done in there over the last 4 years is they've announced layoffs, just like so many other companies have done, announcing layoffs. Vinny, what does Wall Street love almost as much as EBITDA? Layoffs that cause more EBITDA.
And it's a easy way of saying earnings before interest, taxes and amortization. It's called EBITDA. Okay. There's no D in there. But that's how some people pronounce it. But I wanted to remove that and bring this up to you guys so you just kind of understand what he's talking about. So EBITDA, or as he lazily said, EBITDA, but it's earnings before interest, taxes, and amortization. It is a financial metric used to evaluate a company's operational profitability and core performance by executing financing, cost, interest, right? Tax environments and non-cash amortization expenses. It is calculated as net income plus interest plus taxes plus amortization. And that's why they call it EBITDA, because your net is your earnings before interest. Okay. So I just wanted to bring that up. And now let's get back to the video.
Layoffs that make EBITDA.
Layoffs that make EBITDA, yeah.
That's exactly right. Clip that. So it's basically what's going on is they are floating this out there, Pat, like many companies are doing. Will there be 20% laid off? Possibly. Very possibly. Or, you know, look at the little headline there. Just read the Reuters headline, Vinny. Just read it out loud.
Meta shares jump after Reuters report on plans for layoffs of 20% or more.
Report on plans. Is it happening? Is it happening on Tuesday?
Yes.
No, the shares jump after reports on plans. You see what I mean? So this is exactly what's happening to oil. Depending on who speaks over the last week, oil goes up and down. And so that's what's going on.
Well, listen, Yahoo Finance came out this week and said oil could break its all-time record and it hit $148 a barrel this week. Okay, I don't know if you saw that or not.
Yep.
You see that story, Tom?
It could.
Yeah, so $148 this week.
Oh, sorry. I was going to add something to the Facebook Meta thing before you move on.
Go ahead.
So I'm just going to try to create an analogy here. Tell me if you agree with this. So they're cutting staff to make way for AI. Is that what it is, potentially?
Yes.
No, because of AI. AI makes it efficient.
Exactly. So let's use a sports analogy. Remember when the Miami Heat signed LeBron and we're all going to go to South Beach. We're going to take my talents to South Beach. We're going to win championships. So they had these stars because they believe that stars win championships. So Meta is looking at AI saying that's our number one player. That's our max player. That's our LeBron. So what did the Heat have to do? Dude, they had to cut the dead weight on the roster. This guy ain't playing. We're going to have to call somebody up from the G League. You know, these role players aren't really adding a lot of value. We need a LeBron. So to them, the AI is their max star player, and they're willing to invest in him, and they're willing to cut the, you know, quantity and in favor of the quality. So what did they say? 25%? How much? 20% of their workforce Those are role players. Those aren't the stars. So to me, AI is the star. They're investing in that, and we'll see where these role players
If this
end up.
becomes true that they're laying off 20%, you're going to see their stock move up in a massive way.
You think it's going to go up?
The moment they announce 20% layoff, their stock's going to go up. My opinion, 3 to 10% the moment they make that announcement.
And why would it go up immediately, you think?
That's profit going back into the pocket.
there's
So,
no employees.
so what is the average? What is the average employee at Meta make?
Ooh.
120?
What's the average employee in Meta make?
Average.
Average employee at Meta. Meta pays. Meta's got engineers that make $5 million. So the average, in the median employee compensation at Meta, what do you think it is?
250,000.
What do you think it is?
Yeah, I mean it's high, especially in Silicon Valley.
$379,000.
Yeah, I was going to say at least a quarter million.
So if you go to this and you type in 400,000 times 20,000, how much is that? $8 billion a year added to EBITDA.
Wow.
At a valuation, what is their PE ratio, Rob? What's the PE ratio? Vinny, can you do you know what's the PE ratio of Meta? What is the PE ratio of Meta stock? What is it? Is it 25, 22, 38, 41? It's not going to be low. It's
I'll
going to be a
take care
high
of this,
number.
Pat. I think it's I messed up. I put
31 and a half.
meat stick.
Okay, so check this out. Their PE ratio is 31 and a half. If this saves $8 billion in salaries, what's $8 billion times 31 and a half? This right here is a $240 billion increase to the valuation. It's firing 20% of their workforce adds $250 billion of valuation to Meta. So what's Meta currently worth right now? What's Meta's current market cap today? Meta's current market cap today is what? It's $1.84 trillion.
Trillion,
So
yeah.
what's is that what it says? Is that what the market cap says right now?
Trillion and a half.
Is it
Yes.
trillion and a half? What's 250 divided by the trillion and a half? 250 divided by the trillion and a half.
What's the 250 number?
$250 billion is how much it's going to increase.
Gotcha.
So if you go to 250 divided by a trillion and a half is what?
16%?
Is that what it is?
Is it a sixth?
Is that what it is? So if it's $1.5 trillion, yeah. So you're looking at the stock. It says 16.6%, 17% stock going up. I don't think it's going to go that high because you have some other things you need to do. But I think it's going to go up 3 to 10 points. I wouldn't be surprised if it went up 10 to 12 points. Okay, I wouldn't be, if they fired if they let go to 20,000.
Do you remember when Meta changed?
That's if they. So so even the high priced engineers that are making over $300,000, over $350,000, they were making $325,000 over that a year. That's what their salary is, and those are the people that can be in the unemployment line. Wow. Okay. All right. So I wanted to look at this post that was done, and it is regarding Meta. It says, do you understand what happened in the last 12 hours? A CEO of a $200 billion company said on camera that 35% of new grads won't find jobs. He didn't even flinch saying it. Meta made $165 billion last year and is still firing 15,000 people because apparently record profit isn't profitable enough. Some random guy in Florida sold his entire house in 5 days using ChatGPT. No real estate agent, no commission, no experience, just vibes and a $20 subscription. A man in Australia cured his dying dog's cancer with an AI after every single vet told him there was nothing left to do but a custom vaccine from his couch. Okay. The guy who created Uber left 300,000 taxi drivers, broke his back building robots now because apparently ruining one industry wasn't enough. Tinder wants access to your camera roll, your drunk photos, your 3 a.m. notes app meltdowns, and deleted selfies. They're calling it a vibe check. Naval, the man who made hundreds of millions investigating in software, just said software is dead 4 words, the entire industry felt it. And Anthropic removed the limit on how long their AI can think, and then doubled everyone's usage for free. Because when the product is addictive enough, you give the first taste away. All of that happened today, not this week, not this quarter, today, a random Saturday in March. This is worse than you being on meth. And I guess this is showing somebody on meth and what they go through. But that was as of March 14th that all of those things happened. And this is the tech boom that we are in, and no one is safe. No one is safe. And I think that's the point, right? Good morning, Cajun Lady. Thank you so much for joining us and reposting the stream. But yeah, that's the point. Nobody's safe here. Now, this next video I wanted to get started with valuetainment. Now, PBD, he is from Iran, and he wanted to share a little bit about his perspective on what's happening. Now, this was from a few days ago. I want to say this podcast was from Friday.
Who is the Iran foreign minister, okay? While this is being talked about, he has a meeting. He talks about the conversation with Witkoff, because Witkoff brought up nuclear. I don't know if you saw this or not. He says, when we talked to the foreign minister, they kept threatening us with nuclear. Says, what are you talking about? And then the social media is like, no, they never did. They never this. Why would they do this? They're just making it up. Well, here's what the foreign minister said about his call with Witkoff. Go forward.
I never said that we are going to make bombs. I said that we have 440 kilos of 60% enriched material, and that was not a secret. That is what is mentioned in the reports of the IAEA. So I said that, look, this is mentioned in the report. This, if enriched more, can be good enough for 10 bombs, as your own experts claims. So we are ready to give them up, to give them away. We are ready to dilute them, to downblend them into lower degrees. And by saying that, I wanted to say that the concession that we are making is really big. But how they have interpreted that, I don't know. Maybe because the lack of enough knowledge, maybe because of their intentions to justify, as I said, the act of aggression.
Can pause it right there, Tom. Do you believe him?
We're not going to party. We're not going to party. We do have a kilo of Coke, 5 bongs, and enough Turkish hash to last through the winter. But we're not going to party.
Okay, Tom.
We're not doing anything.
Tom went there.
So that's kind of what I heard in my head.
Turkish hash is like.
I didn't say we're going to make a bomb.
Wow, Turkish
I said
hash.
that we're going to get away from fossil fuels, and we're going to. No, listen to what he said. I didn't say we have a bomb. I said we have 450 kilos, and we're going to get away from fossil fuels, and we're going to use it to make nuclear energy. Oh, you really are? It's like, how do you believe this? I mean, it's just like those talking points are somewhere between bizarre and contrived. I didn't understand how to even process.
Well, the critics could say the following. Critics could say, Witkoff came back, and he can say, this is what they said, as an excuse to be able to attack, right? Because it's Witkoff and Kushner, and, a lot of people see Kushner as, Israel connection, so he's going to be from that camp.
He said bomb.
Right. Then the other side could be like, no, maybe they were not being fair players, and they're BSing, and they're playing propaganda. Who do you believe is the question? Vinny.
I don't know, Pat, because and Rob, I sent you this clip of him. I don't believe him, but that's his job. And my question is he on a hit list? If he's the foreign minister, are we actively trying to go after this guy? Out of curiosity, Pat. Because he's alive and he's doing well. He's a liar, because this is actually great. Margaret Brennan from Face the Nation. She actually asked a good question. I thought I had to run it through AI because I honestly thought
I love
that this
that you
was
said
AI.
that. Margaret Brennan actually asked
a good question. I thought it was AI, Pat. So Abbas is over Zoom, and she's asking him about, like, the internet's down. They shut off all the internet for everybody. Abbas. He's Abbas. And then this answer, it tells you everything you need to know about this guy and his character and how honest he is. Go ahead, Rob.
I just do want to point out, you're speaking to us via Zoom. The Iranian people don't have open internet access, but you do. Why?
Well, because I'm the voice of Iranians, and I have to defend their right. So this is why I
what
have
a noble thing.
access to internet.
Vinny, keep your mouth shut. I'll speak on your behalf.
Have our voice being heard by the international community. But internet is closed because of the security reasons, because we are under attack, we are under aggression, and we have to do everything to protect our people. In any country, there are, urgent measures taken for the sake of war.
I just do want to point out.
Do you want to talk about control?
Although the gold frame and the black ribbon is a step up from the cardboard cutout.
Yeah, of course. Like, think about that. He's on Zoom, but the people can't. And that's why, guys, if you think about it, you haven't been really seeing anything from the people in the streets. What's happening? I did see a video where people were in their apartments, Tom, like I won't say high rise, maybe 20, 10 to 15 stories up, looking just down. IRGC is walking in the street. They're looking down and they just open fire at people in their apartments. So you're not seeing.
They would never do that.
No, I mean.
They would never do such a thing, Vinny. That's just propaganda. Why are you saying, you would say that Iranian government would kill their own people?
I saw it with
Why are you making up stories,
I saw it with my own eyes, Patrick.
They would never do that. These are noble people. That Islamic Revolutionary Guard. You realize how sarcastic I'm being right now.
I know that you're being sarcastic. But think about it. And this actually answered my question. I haven't seen anything from the people of the streets of Iran, what the people are going through. This proves it right. They shut off all the internet. I'm curious to when they did that, Rob, if we could find out.
Adam.
Who's this guy? The foreign
minister.
Foreign minister. Okay. You know how I know he's lying?
Boss.
This is how I know this guy's lying, because his lips are moving. Bill O'Reilly used to have a show, and he used to call it the no spin zone. There's no spin here. We're telling the truth here. This guy is incapable of telling the truth. It's all spin. So, they say you got to trust but verify. You trust but verify. Dude, we don't trust this guy at all. And because we don't trust him, we need to verify everything. So this regime is fighting for their lives. They're fighting for their ideology. They're fighting for everything they've ever built since 1979. And they're not going to go down quietly. So if you speak up, they'll kill you internally. If you're a neighbor and you even give the impression that you're not on their side, they'll shoot at you. So this is all about to get very ugly. And then the left media, shout out to this lady for actually pressing this guy. Good for you.
Finally.
Because the left media just believes the Iranian state media. They believe the Hamas media as if they're credible whatsoever. So I love the fact that, there's been this whole ongoing discussion of what happened to this girls' school, 100 or so girls.
168, 14
Horrible,
teachers.
disgusting. Who knows what happened there? Let's get to the bottom of that. This is war.
Yes, and I'll leave the rest of the video for you guys to watch the rest of it. But I wanted to get to that point because it was like, okay, the Iranian people do not have internet, but you got internet, and you're speaking for everybody. So nobody can get any information out, but you're speaking for everybody. See, that's why y'all need Starlink. Get around that. I'm just saying, it's satellite based. Satellite based. Starlink. I'm not being paid by Starlink. I'm not being sponsored, but I'm so excited and I'm really looking forward to trying the product. Now, I want to check out this video from Promethean. Now, it is talking about the Iranian conflict from the United States perspective.
You've been told about forever wars and liberal intervention. The worldview driving President Trump's agenda in Iran isn't neocon, and it isn't imperialist. It is a radical, calculated strike against the very system that has hollowed out the American middle class for 4 decades. What we are witnessing is a major flanking operation to end the era of globalization. This is a radical break from 40 years of managed decline. I'm Mike Steger. I've been in this fight since 2001. Today, I'm going to show you the world map, 5 regions, 1 global strategy, and the end of the great game. The globalist era rested on a basic lie, that liberal democracy and international rules would solve the world's problems. It was actually a cover for permanent war and corporate control. Self-government was hollowed out. Power was handed to multinational corporations. Tony Blair said it out loud in 1999. Any government that thinks it can go it alone is wrong. If the markets don't like your policies, they will punish you. That means accepting the judgments of international organizations, even when you do not like them. This is what Trump is overthrowing. This is why he moved on Iran now. Never before has a system of sovereign nation states dominated the world's economy. But today, that threat is real, and the globalists are panicked. Leaders on every continent know that the status quo is untenable. There is no nation and no people who want the globalists in power. There are only a few regimes still clinging to this old way, because most know it's a Hobbesian survival of the fittest system, where conflict and total war become inevitable. This is why Russia and China are talking to Trump. They know the stakes are astronomical, and they know that no other nation except the United States can take the lead on such great change. This is the great change versus the great game. And you play a key role. If you want to better understand that role, you should sign up for our weekly Promethean newsletter. It's free, and the link is in the description. It's time for real global strategy. The Persian Gulf powers 1/3 of the global economy. Japan relies on it for 95% of its oil. China and India for 50%. Vietnam, 85%, etc. Control this region, and you control the world's economic choke point. 100 years ago, the British Empire set up a terrorist group called the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt around the Suez Canal, a shipping choke point. To this day, the Muslim Brotherhood wants a barbaric caliphate, not thriving Arab nations. Then, after World War II, the British began using Israel for permanent religious war against this radical Islam. Divide and conquer. More chaos, easier to control. As focus turned to the Gulf and the global oil supply in the 1970s, they turned to a new agenda, what Brzezinski called the crescent of crisis, a belt of permanent conflict from India to the Mediterranean. The cultivated warlords like Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan and the mullahs in Iran. They said it was just the Cold War, but really the globalists were creating a permanent enemy to drag the United States into another forever war, just like they had done with communism and Vietnam. All of it to destroy the United States. So once the Bush crowd let 9/11 happen, the neocons went for total war, and the rest is history. Destruction on all ends. That monster reared its head again on October 7th when Hamas attacked Israel. Hamas is the Muslim Brotherhood. It is backed by Iran, and it was even funded by Netanyahu. October 7th was a globalist gambit 1,000%. Why in 2023? Because of the Abraham Accords, a threat of real peace. Trump had launched a new policy based on nations, development, and trade. Israel and Saudi Arabia were in real negotiations to establish full relations. This was going to be a major tipping point, a massive power play by the United States and President Trump to define the crossroads of Asia, Africa, and Europe. After just 1 year back in office, there is already a new Gaza peace deal signed by 30 nations and supported by over 50. The potential for peace is real if the region is stable and real investments can be made. And that's why Iran remained a threat. But what about China? Are China and Russia a new Cold War bloc? That's not what the Great Change intends. This is about a new global system. But China is a big factor. In 1971, Richard Nixon took the dollar off gold. This ended the Bretton Woods system, and nothing replaced it. The World Bank and the IMF became tools to enforce a new kind of Wild West of corporate supremacy. The era of globalization and free trade took over. By 2002, China had built an empire based on cheap labor and government subsidies. Then they joined the World Trade Organization, and the great sucking sound of NAFTA turned into a hurricane. No one could compete with China's cheap labor and government power. Over the last 25 years, China has built up a wealthy nation, massive infrastructure, science and technology, and a lot of communist billionaires. Yet even their former prime minister said they still have 600 million living on less than $5 a day. China, like the corporations, is addicted to globalization. Massive profits for the communist state, but the people suffer. We need a new global system. And that's what Trump has initiated. Over the last year, he has reorganized the entire system of global trade, except for China. He will visit Xi in April. The question will be simple. Will China join a new fair trade system or choose a new Cold War? By squeezing China on energy and trade, we force them to the table. We intend to secure a 21st century based on the rights of nations and a defense of working people, not corporations or state control. As Scott Bessent said, could we do something where they consume more, manufacture less? We consume less, manufacture more. That would be a home run for the global economy. As the Chinese would say, that's a win-win. The Chinese people get higher wages, and we reindustrialize. The American system would go global. And that's why the globalists see Iran and China as big pieces of this puzzle. We're covering these shifts in real time as they happen. If this perspective, mixing history, science, and strategy, is something you've been looking for, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's the only way to make sure you don't miss our deep dive next week on the war with the cartels. For those who want to support this work directly, consider becoming a paying subscriber at the link below. It's how we stay independent. China depends on cheap fuel from Russia. If the U.S. and Russia establish relations on shared goals, the whole global system changes. This is the pivot for great change. That's why the war with Russia is the ultimate great game. In 2010, Lyndon LaRouche gave a warning after they killed Gaddafi. Paraphrasing, he said, the globalists are in a rush. They need to escalate the war in Syria and create a war with Russia. The intent is war with Russia. By 2014, there was a coup in Ukraine, and then there was a civil war. By 2022, a proxy war between the U.S. and Russia had been launched. In the 1990s, the globalists dreamed of breaking Russia up to rule the world, the so-called unipolar moment, the globalists' wet dream. A war between the United States and Russia ultimately weakens both nations and makes us both easier to control. And the inverse is also true. If the two nations decide to work together, then the globalists are damned. This is why President Trump focuses on peace. It's why they ran the Russia hoax to stop him. Trump said it at Mar-a-Lago in 2025. A lot of success could have been had by trading with Russia. They have great land, great minerals, and other things, and we have things that they want very badly. I think we're going to get there. I know him very well. If the U.S. and Russia make a deal on resources, trade, and development, the threat of world war ends. The globalists know it. They lose their strategic control. Russian life expectancy in the 1990s for men dropped from 65 years, just 65 years, to 57 years in the 1990s. It was death from despair. Thank Jeffrey Sachs and the Harvard boys for that one. Radical globalization in Russia was worse than communism. They were wrecked by it, and they see the destruction of Europe today from that same disease. If Russia and the U.S. pivot, then China faces a real choice: Russian cheap energy or isolation. Same for Europe. All of Europe and China are squeezed. Globalization burns on the pyre of the great change. This is grand strategy at its finest. but let's bring it home. The best for last. Our so-called elites have handed the Americas over to drug cartels, gangs, and poverty. This is the cause of the immigration crisis. Trump is changing all of that. He is reviving the original Monroe Doctrine. This isn't gunboat diplomacy. The goal today is to turn the Western Hemisphere into the strongest economic region on Earth. That's the Don Rowe Doctrine. His national security strategy says this: the United States will prioritize commercial diplomacy, while an economically stronger and more sophisticated Western Hemisphere becomes an increasingly attractive market for American commerce and investment. His defense strategy says this: as the department works to secure America's borders, threats to those borders must be addressed deeper in the hemisphere. We will develop partners' ability to degrade narco-terrorist organizations across the Americas and support them as they do. The results are already coming in. We've declared the cartels foreign terrorist organizations, targeted their financial networks, initiated U.S.-Mexico military collaboration, extradited 55 cartel leaders from Mexico, eliminated a top cartel leader, El Mencho, removed Maduro, and we established the Shield of the Americas, a military counter-cartel operation throughout the entire hemisphere. We are quickly building a new civilization in the Americas, and there is much more to come. Stay tuned for next week's show if you're interested. But none of this works without the miracle here at home. Alexander Hamilton established the American system of economics as our constitutional system. This is the American system of political economy. In 1790, to avoid defaulting on the Revolutionary War debt, he used the debt to borrow even more, and then used the new investments to rebuild our new nation. Trump is doing the same thing. He took our weakness, our massive debt, the so-called consumer of last resort, and leveraged that to generate $18 trillion in investments into American industry. Semiconductors, shipbuilding, steel, aerospace, furniture. We have factories being built all over the country, and we are just getting started. This is breaking the grip of globalization and replacing it with strong and prosperous nations. And this great change, it has to come from the United States. We are the leading nation, the primus inter pares, the first among equals, because we launched the era of nation states. And now, today, we, the American people, are breathing new life into a system of nations. The mullahs regime was created to oppose this very revival of the United States. It was meant to be our permanent enemy. But we don't have permanent enemies. No one does. We are creating a new era of nations where people can thrive, because strength, real strength, comes from production, from our people, our faith, our heritage. Stephen Miller said it at the Americas Conference. We share cultures, Western Christian civilization. We share these things together. We have to have the courage to defend it. This is the end of globalization and empire. This is the great change. And if you're ready to be a part of this revival, sign up for our newsletter, join us as a member, and help us rebuild our civilization.
Yes, so we will definitely be getting into the cartel conversation. And that will be a different video that I play. But it's interesting because to see this perspective is like, unless they were here, you wouldn't think we were doing anything. But they are building. They are building. And I'll make sure to bring that back tomorrow where we can see some of these sites, where they're building, where the employment is going to be. Because, see, the one thing that robots can't do, and nobody talks about this, they can't fix cars. They can't build houses. They can't work on plumbing. There's just, and I'm just mentioning the housing part, but I'm just saying there's a lot of things that AI cannot do. So don't get discouraged. I'm just saying, do not get discouraged. Now, this next video I wanted to play, this is from Harrison. He works on InfoWars, and he put together a very interesting compilation video that I wanted us to check out.
Another revolution coming. I tend to steer it along with the achievement of a broader peace. When history is within reach.
So what Israel is fighting here is not merely a seven-front war, but an eight-front war.
It's called the Jews against Rome.
Rome and Jerusalem clashed over values with a great tragedy for the Jewish people.
Well, we lost that.
We have to win the next one. But the new Rome, the United States, Jews against Rome.
We stopped playing defense and have moved to offense.
The weapons change over time. You can't fight today with swords. That doesn't work very well.
But we need the kind of genius that manufactured Apollo gold pagers and infiltrated Hezbollah for over a decade to prepare for this battle.
But we have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we're engaged. And the most important ones are the social media.
Because the next war will be decided based on how Israel and its allies perform online as much as offline.
This is the eighth front, the disinformation campaign.
It is actually this eighth front where our enemies believe they can actually defeat the Jewish state.
This is the kind of ingenuity and inventiveness that have always been a hallmark of the state of Israel, that have always been a characteristic of the Jewish people. I know we can do it.
A lot of this is done with money.
Invested billions and billions of dollars in the information battlefield.
Money of NGOs, vast. Money of governments, vaster.
We prohibit harmful stereotypes about Jewish people, such as claims that Jews control financial, political, or media institutions.
You're damn right we're going to cancel them and deplatform them.
We monitor them online, social media, messaging apps, video games, cryptocurrency.
Hitler admirers, Stalin admirers, Jew haters.
Podcasts, short form video, Wikipedia, LLM.
American haters, Churchill haters.
We monitor these people and we share the intelligence with the FBI.
You think your stupid little podcast is going to change the world like hell it is?
Social media, this is the new battlefield.
You don't get to wrap your psychotic, mental, unhinged Nazi.
We do not allow Holocaust denial and distortion.
And the most important purchase that is going on right now is
TikTok.
TikTok, number one.
For every 30 minutes that someone watches TikTok, they become 17% more anti-Semitic.
So you have TikTok just smashing our young people's brains all day long with video of carnage in Gaza.
And so we really have a TikTok problem.
Because anything that we try to say to them, they are hearing it through this wall of carnage, and I sound obscene.
Anti-Zionism is just Jew hatred. We made a change.
We updated our policies
to designate the use of the term Zionist
to recognize that the term Zionist
as a proxy for a protected attribute
can be used as a proxy for Jews and Israelis.
As hate speech.
Why can't Israel be doing some sort of, counterintelligence?
Right now, the ADL is co-writing Sunday school curriculum.
Information warfare like this.
It's building the technology to train the LLMs more effectively.
Like psychological operations in America.
As part of a robust framework to combat anti-Semitism, we have industry-leading policies designed with the safety of the Jewish community in mind.
You're right, we control the media. So what are you going to do about it? You're going to bitch on Twitter? Like, okay. Meanwhile, we're going to control more of the media.
And working with OpenAI, with Alphabet, with Anthropic, with Meta, with Microsoft, we are working with them now to train the LLMs.
We also have, I think, over 24 Jewish organizations that are constantly feeding us intelligence and information.
So number one, we measure and track. Number two, we monitor and disrupt. We have a whole apparatus. I have 40 analysts working full-time, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, monitoring extremists.
Monitoring campuses, digital networks, activist groups, and public officials.
We have several PhDs on staff. We have a network of academics and scholars we work with around the country.
I've talked to the leaders of AI in the world, and you ask yourself, there's so many blessings in this, but there could be a curse.
First thing a country needs to do is to unify all of their data so it can be consumed and used by the AI model.
We need to invest in intelligence to understand who are the anti-Semites, who's funding them, what's their plans, who are the leaders. And then once we have that, we can define who is an enemy we can attack.
You have to take all of your healthcare data, your diagnostic data, your genomic data. We have to take all of this data we have in our country and move it into a single, if you will, unified data platform.
Once we have all this information, we need to empower and mobilize an ecosystem of many organizations that we can incentivize them to work together, to share, and to fight against our common enemies.
Mobilizing millions of people, of allies that are quietly by our side.
Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on.
You know, anti-Semites, most of these people running around, we're not going to win their hearts and minds because they don't have hearts and they don't have minds. So, you know, how are we going to, there's no reason to think we're ever going to convince them, but we can deport them, we can put them in jail, we can make their lives miserable, we can cut off their funding.
You've got all these conspiracy theorists online going on and on about how, you know, if you try and say anything, if you try and do anything against Jews, they're going to come after you.
We have featured more than 1,000 anti-Semites.
And they're going to destroy you and take away your business, and therefore you have to be really, really scared.
These Jew haters have faced real consequences, including firings, suspensions, and expulsions.
And it's kind of starting to become true.
We will shine a light on you that will follow you for the rest of your life. When you look for a job, when you look for a spouse, when you look for a nanny, when you look for anything.
And I love that. I love it.
We remove hate speech against Zionists when these harmful stereotypes about Jews are invoked.
In the past 12 months, ADL's filed more lawsuits than in the prior 112 years.
Over the weekend, I received concerning news that I was being sued for $5 million.
Vicious, communist, racist, Jew-hating, Israel-bashing monster.
Defendant frequently posts anti-Israel rhetoric accusing Israel of controlling the United States and its politicians.
We at the ZOA will fight these dangerous and monstrous lies with all of our hearts and souls. No appeasement, no conciliation, only a war against this racist hatred of the Jewish people.
When there is a war,
I have to stop it right there. Again, you're not a race. You're an ethnicity. Stop that. It's almost like race is just this convenient trope. Yeah, it's a convenient trope for some. Now, for others, it's a caste system that was created in this country to keep people at the bottom and other people at the top. This is why some people identify as white. By the way, this is why we have white Hispanic and white non-Hispanic, just using that as an example, so they can play the race game, so they can play the caste system game. Jewish people, stop that. You cannot play the race game. Either you are an ethnicity or you are not. Are you religion or you are not? Which is it? Pick a lane. You and Islam, I think you have the same issue. What are you? Now with Islam, they are definitely in the religious class. They are not an ethnic race. Now, there are ethnicities within Islam. Okay. Now, with Judaism, right? Predominantly the people within that religion, they are of Jewish descent. Right? They are a Jew. They are a Jewish descent, or they basically go in and accept whatever they need to accept to become a part of the Jewish doctrine of how they practice. But you're not a race. So to hear them say racism is silly. It really is silly. But let's continue.
it doesn't matter who your enemy is, you need to destroy their offspring to prevent them from creating more offspring.
What you try to do is you want to corral your victim, but in fact, your countries are the victim. So you dehumanize a group of people in human society, and you prepare them for the kill, for the butchery.
A government can do in 2 months more than any organization can do in its lifetime.
The J7 is comprised of the 7 largest diaspora communities. We meet every other week via Zoom to share information, to share best practices.
And we're running everything all the time, from focus groups to attitudinal surveys to randomized controlled trials to identify what interventions work most effectively.
Finally, we have meetings that are some off the record, some on the record with world leaders, in which we share our community's concerns and call for action.
The entire education system in this country, from K through 12 and colleges, must be reformed.
But it's time to limit the First Amendment in order to protect it.
The way we solve anti-Semitism is pretty goddamn simple.
Take control over what they are saying.
Send their ass to jail. It's not complicated.
And quickly before it's too late.
We're monitoring political Islamists and Christian nationalists, all of them. And then we train. We're the largest trainer of law enforcement in America. Extremism hate. We train 20,000 officers every year.
Try that again.
Here because of the comments made online about the Jewish community.
We deeply value our partnership with law enforcement. We've been working with them literally since the FBI was founded in the 1930s.
Okay, so is that your account?
That guy who consistently calls for the death of all Palestinians, that can probably incite somebody to do something radical. That's what we're here to talk about. I would think, to refrain from posting things like that.
We are going to have a whole division within the office of the Special Envoy to combat anti-Semitism that is going to work on technology.
We must take all of our technological expertise and all of our available resources to develop methods to launch and win a significant counter-information campaign.
The product of our technical capacities and sometimes technical and intelligence genius, and we're happy to do it.
The office is going to be revamped entirely to be one of the highest profile offices in the State Department.
Because it's not working. Too many young people have never heard of the Holocaust.
The only solution right now is for the governments to decide that all the Jews are a protected minority. That means that the government will be obliged to provide the security.
Upgrades to security. Jewish community shouldn't have to be paying for it. But we have to pay for our own armed guards? Are you serious?
To fund the institutions, culture, and that everybody in Europe will learn about the Jewish contribution and why they should cherish Jewish presence.
All your synagogues, all your shul, all paid for. Everything. Everything that you need is paid for. I, for one, as a Jewish leader, will no longer talk about anti-Semitism in isolation from Israel. What we want immediately, if you ask any Jew, what do you want? What do you want? No more protests. No more protests.
I'm not an anti-Semite. I just don't like the government of Bibi Netanyahu. No, you're a Jew hater.
Would a group be banned if it accuses Israel of genocide or apartheid?
If those criteria are satisfied, then that is the case.
Any candidate running for a seat in this building, whether for Congress or Senate, we will target them as they target us. Accordingly, we will start a fund to help their opponents.
Beginning already in Q1, hedge funds get set up in Israel so we can become another capital of finance. I'll argue we will beat London within a short decade as a second capital of finance. It's going to be New York as a gateway to America, Hong Kong a gateway to China, Dubai a gateway to Southeast Asia, and Israel as a gateway to other parts of the world.
So we heard earlier about a mission, a goal to bring 1 million immigrants to Israel.
History has proven that when a country starts with allowing anti-Semitism, the results are not kind to that country.
I want to make a warning to somebody else, and that's American Gentiles. The minute your country is taken over by anti-Semitism, the minute you start to be a country that's not blessing Israel but cursing Israel, you have begun the process of shrinking away from your empire.
And you can decide, you can stay here in New York in a declining empire, or you can come to Israel, which is part of the rising middle of the world, which is moving south and east. That's what I encourage you to do.
Our faith in the American project itself has been shaken. The only serious answer to this challenge
is to believe again that being Jewish is the most important thing in the world.
When we're kicked out of America and America, the whole thing is done, the whole American Jewish project is done, we're going to be fine.
For decades, American society allowed Jews to live normal lives. This was a pleasant holiday from our destiny. The holiday is over.
The Western culture that stands against the Jews is going down. The West will survive only if it decides to love itself and if it decides to love us, the Jewish people.
The Jewish people are not normal. We never really were.
And now that Israel has turned the entire geopolitical situation on its head, our job in the diaspora is to leverage those wins and win here. Do to our enemies here what Israel did to its enemies there.
And to the world, I say this: history will not remember those who merely denounced hatred in polite language. History will remember those who acted.
This is a small bunch of wannabe Nazis. That's what they are.
Anti-Semitism is pure evil.
If we have to hunt you down the way they hunted down Nazis for decades, we will find your identities. We will find you. We will achieve justice.
I think we're at the cusp of a new age, because I think that we will achieve the expansion of peace. I think that we are at a new age because I think that the possibilities of technology, with their risks, especially in AI, but with their positive benefits, are enormous in every field. I mean, from agriculture to health to transportation and I think that we are together. We can lead this and become not a secondary power, but a primary power.
Yeah, Harrison put that together. He was like, yeah, check it out. I was like, okay, I'll check it out. Look, it's weird because, we have a constitution here. We've got, the First Amendment. We got the Second Amendment, and other people want to come over from their countries and be like, America has to do this. Have you looked at our Constitution? No, we don't. That's why we have one. Yeah, as tattered as it is, y'all, as dysfunctional as we are here in America, at least we have that. And you don't like it, and you want to force everybody here to go along with you. Guess what? We don't have to. Because that's not what our Constitution says. Okay? Again, as dysfunctional as we are, we don't have to subscribe to anything for anyone. Because, see, we're here in America. We don't have to subscribe to Israel at all. Period. It's one thing to be a geopolitical partner, right? It's one thing to play nice in the sandbox where we're like, hey, cool, we don't hate you, but you're not like, we're not super besties, but we're cool, right? We're good, right? Don't mess with us. We won't mess with you. I'm cool with that. But when you start coming over here and making demands on the American people, nobody voted for you. Nobody voted for this. What do you want? Go somewhere. Go back to your home country and y'all do whatever you want to over there, but you're not going to bring that over here. That's all I'm saying. So Spud says they're lying about monitoring college campuses because in Miami, the TPUSA leader made horrible anti-Semitism hate speech and they all are silent. Elon Musk did that symbol and they were quiet. The ADL pick and choose who they want to target for anti-Semitism hate speech. Not wrong. And Robo says, starting to question Israel's real goals. They're taking huge advantage to excuse killing. Yeah, and see, that's another thing that's going on with them. Like, look, I'm an American. I am not an Israeli. And Uncle Coolwater says, so the small hats can come out the people, but the people can't come out the small hats. This is not good. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. I don't like it. I just don't like when people encroach upon my First Amendment rights. I don't like when people come from other places and try to encroach upon the Constitution, period. Like, look, we're a republic over here, and if you don't like it, leave. But you can't come in here and then try to turn around and tell people what to do. And that, we'll talk about, Islam tomorrow and their Sharia laws and courts and all that kind of crazy stuff they're trying to do over here. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But with Israel, it's like they've woven themselves in. And so I want to get to two other videos. One talking about Joe Kent, right? Now, this first video that I'm going to play, it's from Alex Jones. And he's talking a little bit about Joe Kent. Now, Joe Kent was one of the advisors to President Trump. I think he was in the National Defense Secretary or something like that. I'll get into a specific title and role, but he resigned. All this stuff going on, he was like, with Iran, he's like, I'm out. So I've got two videos to play from. One is recent, and one is an interview that he did with Tucker Carlson, and Tucker Carlson actually asked him, what if we were to go into Iran? So it's a little bit of looking at the past and seeing where we are now in the future.
The director of national intelligence resigned. I'm about to read his full letter on air. It is so damning. It's everything we've said. Israel is in control of U.S. foreign policy. They have gotten control of Trump's mind. They are lying to the president and steering us towards total disaster. And now they're gearing up with the ADL and others saying they don't want to just arrest Americans that disagree with this, but they treat us the same way they did Hamas with the, quote, pagers. These are quotes by the head of the ADL. You have Trump saying that Mark Levin is the new leader of the Republican Party and that anyone that doesn't do what he says is a traitor. This is total and complete insanity. They will now say that Joe Kent, a Levanter, highly decorated combat veteran, is a Nazi. It's not going to work, Trump. This is insane. Trump was doing so much good. We turned the country around, and now they're throwing it all away. Thank you so much for joining us on this live Tuesday global transmission. Share the live feed now. I'll read the full statement coming up. I hand the baton right now to Harrison Smith. This is historic. Share the live feeds now at Real Alex Jones on X, on Rumble, the Alex Jones Show right now, and tell folks about those local stations you're listening to. As Joe Kent said, it's time for Trump to turn back. We're doing this to get him to listen. This is tough medicine. You're the Paul Revere's. Share the live feeds now. Tell everybody you know, call the White House and tell Trump to turn back now and turn control back over to the United States of America, not to Israel and other foreign powers. Thank you.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Alex Jones Show on Infowars.com and banned.video. Impressive thing. That's
system. And he's there looking at all the national intelligence that Tulsi Gabbard's seeing as well and knows it's a lie. They sent him a report 1 week before he struck 18, 19 days ago with Israel and said, this isn't true. What they're saying about Iran isn't true. This isn't in our national interest. This is a lie. And now we have Trump saying, if you don't support what I'm doing in an unending war, you're basically a Nazi. He said, Mark Levin is my spirit animal. It's a litmus test. If you don't endorse this Israel firster, then you're not MAGA. Well, guess what, Trump? You're not MAGA anymore. You're make Israel great again. It's totally disgusting. Now, I still support Trump overall, controlling the border, trying to end the war with Russia, all the other good things that are happening. That said, he's better than the Democrats, but it doesn't matter. We are still going to put pressure on Trump to not continue to step into this mother of all miscalculations and disasters as they're basically admitting it is. We're not like the Democrats that just cultishly follow our supposed leader. And regardless, we'll continue on with populism in the spirit of 1776 and America First. Populism is winning elections all over the world. Trump rode in on this wave. He didn't create this wave. I was promoting 1776 and anti-globalism 32 years ago, long before Trump figured it out in the last 10 years. And we've influenced Trump massively. That's why it's so painful to see this unfold. So to me, this isn't a popularity contest between myself and Mark Levin or Ben Shapiro, who were never Trumpers. And Lindsey Graham was never Trumper. It's about Trump selling us out to neocon and Israeli interests, and it's so dangerous. So here is the letter from the Director of National Intelligence, Joe Kent, National Counterterrorism Center today. President Trump, after much reflection, I decided to resign from my position as director of the National Counterterrorism Center effective today. I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran poses no imminent threat to our nation. It is clear that we started the war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby, which they bragged about, that when you say that, the ADL calls for your arrest and says we should use the same tactics with exploding pagers on Americans that don't support us. We actually said that. I played the clip yesterday. I mean, this is freaking nuts. I've never even tried to be an enemy with Israel. They're just making everybody be an enemy because they're so out of control. I'm certainly not with the Muslims either. My God. Wow. I supported the values and the foreign policies that you campaigned on in 2016, 2020, 2024, which you enacted in your first term. Until June of 2025, you understood that the wars in the Middle East were a trap that robbed Americans of precious lives and of our patriots and depleted the wealth and prosperity of our nation. In your first administration, you understood better than any modern president how to decisively apply military power without getting us drawn to never-ending wars. That's why I brought in Kent, who's an expert on that. You demonstrated this by killing the head of ISIS. Early in his administration, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign last year that wholly undermined your American First platform and sowed pre-war and pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. This echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States and that that you should strike. There was a clear path to swift victory, but there wasn't. This was a lie and is the same tactic the Israelis used to draw us into the disastrous Iraq war and cost our nation the lives of thousands of our best men and women and cost trillions, I would add. We cannot make this mistake again, which we're beginning to make in a big way. Iran's even worse. So the Pentagon said, if you think Iraq and Afghanistan were bad, Iran's 10 times worse. As a veteran who deployed to combat 11 times and as a Gold Star husband who lost my beloved wife, Shannon, in a war manufactured by Israel, I cannot support sending the next generation to fight and die in a war that serves no benefit to the American people nor justifies the cost of American lives. I pray that you will reflect upon this and what we are doing in Iran, and that you will, and who we are in this for. The time for bold action is now. You can reverse course and chart a new path for our nation. You can reverse course, chart a new path for our nation, or you can allow us to slip further toward decline and chaos. You hold the cards. It was an honor to serve in your administration and to serve our great nation. Joseph Kent, Director of National Counterterrorism Center. I mean,
yeah. Now, the last video I'm going to play is Tucker Carlson. And when he interviewed Joe Kent before Joe Kent worked for the Trump administration. And so I wanted you guys to see that letter, to see where he's at, just to see how consistent Mr. Kent is.
Is a U.S. Army veteran who served in Iraq. He's running to represent Washington State in the Congress. He's definitely one of the good guys. We're honored to have him on our show tonight. Joe Kent, thanks for coming on. You're the first in our lineup this evening. So I'd ask you for your baseline perceptions here. What do you think of what you've seen today?
Well, today's been an absolute tragedy, but unfortunately, I think we're seeing over nearly 2 decades of lies come unraveling. The U.S. military has been saying for nearly 2 decades we've built this Afghan government and this Afghan army, and that they were worthy of the sacrifice of our brave young men and women, and that they would hold. And then we're also seeing the lies of the Biden administration come unfolding as well. There was a hard plan and a deal to get us out by May, but Biden did not want to execute President Trump's plan to get us out by May, the deal that he negotiated from a position of strength. Instead, he wanted to cut a separate deal, his own deal, that gave the Taliban 3 months of prime fighting season time to plan this assault that we're seeing now. And now we are completely at the mercy of the Taliban, and our troops are hostages, essentially. And we are not taking proactive steps to go on the offensive to get our people out of there. We're prioritizing refugees and anyone but Americans. It's an absolute disgrace.
It does seem pretty clear that in a situation like this, obviously it's complex, lots of moving parts. You know, I always give people the benefit of the doubt to some extent because, you know, it's hard. But any normal person who loved his country would say job one is getting our citizens out. That comes before everything else. There's no question. I mean, anybody, any normal person would decide to do that. But they haven't. Why?
No, that's absolutely correct. The only reason that I can think of is just the culture that the Biden administration has set from day one. They opened up our southern border. They're letting thousands of illegal refugees in that way, illegal immigrants pushed in by the cartel. The Biden administration's national security establishment ran by Lloyd Austin, Blinken, Sullivan, all of them. They are part of this culture that believes America is a power in descent and that we are not a unique nation or an important nation. And that culture has echoed throughout the national security apparatus. And now we are prioritizing getting Afghans out of the country. And the only reason that I can think of to get all these unvetted Afghans out as fast as we are trying to get them out is to pump even more refugees into the heartland of this country. That seems to be the top priority of this administration. And again, it's a complete and total disgrace, and it's completely and totally reckless.
So you're part of the despised group that actually fights our wars. You know, working class kid from the Pacific Northwest. You joined young, you got married, your wife was killed fighting one of the wars. I mean, how much of their contempt do you feel personally as you watch them make these decisions?
I feel an incredible amount of contempt and resentment. So my wife was killed about a month after Trump attempted to get our troops out of Syria the first time. Every time that we attempt to end a war, the military-industrial complex fails catastrophically. Under Trump, they double-crossed him and lied every step of the way to leave our troops in harm's way. He tried to get us out of Afghanistan as well. He finally came up with a deal to get us out in May. The military-industrial complex has now lied to President Biden. They did not prepare us to get out right now, according to Biden's timeline. Biden should have never made that deal. He should have had us out in May. And the military-industrial complex should have not lied to a duly elected president. That's President Trump, not President Biden. They shouldn't have lied to either one, and they should have had a plan to get us out. But it's clear that they didn't. I can feel the contempt. The politicians and the military-industrial complex, the unelected bureaucrats, they treat us just as cannon fodder to make their political gains. And we do not have to take that anymore. This is our country, and we need to start taking it back. It's all crumbling apart right now. The illegitimacy of the Biden administration and the illegitimacy of our permanent ruling class.
Man, you're making me upset just hearing those words because they're so clearly true. And I think anyone listening tonight who's lived in this country for the last 20 years knows that what you said is exactly right. And my last question to you, not to increase the level of bitterness here, but there are a lot of people responsible for the debacle that we're seeing now for the deaths of those 13 Marines, the Navy corpsmen, today. And you wonder if any of them will ever be held accountable for what they did.
They will be held accountable. We are going to take the House and the Senate back in 2022, and we are going to hold a full inquiry on all of our wars, starting with this incident, starting with this botched withdrawal, and essentially working our way backwards. We know that we've been lied to about Afghanistan for years now. The Afghan papers that came out last year that the media ran coverage for, that all started to expose the lies. We know Iraq was based on lies. There will be accountability when we take our country back, and that's why I'm running for Congress, to take this nation back.
Yes, now that was a discussion on Afghanistan. There is another video on Iran. I don't have that one, so I'll make sure that I play that one tomorrow. But definitely keep him in our prayers because, you know, he is a gold star husband. What that means is he actually lost a loved one in combat. So our prayers definitely go out to him. But he's definitely a man of integrity because he could have stayed. He didn't have to say anything. But his integrity couldn't allow him to stay. He was like, I got to walk away from this. You are not doing the right thing. And so we want to make sure that, you know, we, as Alex said, hold President Trump's feet to the fire. Again, and I will say this, when you get caught up emotionally, you make horrible long-term decisions. And that's what I see. And that's just my opinion. That's what I see going on. It's a lot of emotion for some long-term decisions that will affect us in the long term. And we need to make sure that our leaders are doing the right thing. So I want to thank you guys for joining me here on Women in Wellness Wednesday. I didn't have anybody come up on the broadcast. I didn't get anybody to ask to throw them the mic. But I am looking forward to tomorrow we are going to have Mighty Men Thursdays, and it will be open mic just like Women in Wellness Wednesday. So if there's anybody that wants to come up and talk, share their thoughts on, it'll be open, right? You might have a topic that you've been wanting to discuss here on the broadcast. Just let me know. And again, you can send me an email at unfilteredvisionnews@gmail.com, or you can also send a, what was I going to say? You can send me a direct message on X. And my profile is It's Our Turn RP. So thank you guys so much for joining me here every day that you do join me on Unfiltered Vision News. And definitely make sure you check out the web-based app at unfilteredvisionnews.com. And with that, just make sure that you stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.